episode peels back the veil between worlds, from the wisdom of spirit guides to the subtle energy of the body's own intuition. Psychic medium and medical intuitive Julie Ryan can sense what medical conditions and illnesses a person has and facilitates energetic healings. She can communicate with spirits, both alive and dead. Julie can scan animals, access people's past lives, and she can tell how close to death someone is. Her book, Angelic Attendants: What Really Happens as We Transition from this life into the next, describes a series of events that involves angels, multitudes of deceased family and friends, the spirit of deceased pets, and countless serendipitous and miraculous moments. Each week, Julie scans callers on her show, Ask Julie Ryan, which is heard in over 100 countries throughout the world. I am so excited to have Julie Ryan on the show today. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks so much. I'm delighted to be here.
So let's start off by telling the audience how you discovered your abilities as a psychic medium and a medical intuitive.
I learned how to do them. I didn't know that I had any abilities. I'm a businesswoman and an inventor of surgical devices sold throughout the world who learned how to do woo woo, and I'm a buffet of psychicness. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I teach people all over the world how to do what I do, and it's all learned.
Hmm. Well, that's good news because sometimes we are just lost when we don't know what's going on with ourselves. And it helps to have some of that intuitive guidance. And I know we're all intuitive, right?
Yeah.
But knowing that we can learn to be what I like to say, our own healers or aware of what's happening, it just adds such an extra layer of comfort and knowledge for ourselves. Yeah, so you've done a lot in your life. You are an entrepreneur, an inventor. Maybe you can talk us through what happens during a typical session with someone, or actually what you even do on your show, Ask Julie Ryan.
Sure. Every Thursday night at 8 Eastern, people call in from all over the world. It's a blast, Rose. It's so much fun. I never know who's calling. I never know what their question's going to be. I never know what spirit's going to say. And people call in and we can talk to their dead grandma. I can scan them energetically and do an energetic healing on them. We can do one on their pet, on their cat, dog, lizard, whatever. We can do past life stuff. We can talk to their angels and their spirit guides. It's really fun. And once we connect with spirit, we can do it all. I never understood why you got the psychics and the mediums and the past life people and the pet psychics and whatever else. It's like once
Yeah.
you connect with spirit, you can do it all. I'm not sure why they're siloed. Everybody has the ability. We all have experienced at some point in our lives when we think of somebody and either they call us or they text us or they email us or we run into them and we think, I was just thinking of you this morning and here you are. I had that with my brother this morning. I thought of him and within a second he was calling me. That's psychic ability. We all do it. We all have it.
Well, I was listening to one of your shows and you talk about how you need to raise your vibration, right? In order to meet spirit. And I know I've learned, or I've studied also, psychic and medium development, both separately, like you said, siloed, right? But the process is very similar, or it's the same. You
Yeah.
raise your vibration. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I raised my vibration. This is what I teach. Takes a nanosecond to do it. I turn it on and off at will. If you want to meditate for an hour, twirl 3 times, jump on your left foot and raise your right hand before you do something psychic, that you are welcome to do that, but it's not necessary. And it's like driving a car, with practice, you just get into the car and you turn it on and you drive. You don't even think about it. And so that's what I teach too, is it's just instant. And then our heads are like big satellite dishes and they receive and transmit frequencies. Every spirit has a frequency they keep throughout all of their lifetimes. So, in order to get in touch with somebody, you think of them. It doesn't matter whether they're dead or alive, if it's a spirit attached to a body or not. And it's irrelevant whether you knew the person or not. You just think of them. That connects your satellite dish head to their frequency, and it opens up something similar to a two-way radio communication. And you say something to them, and they're going to answer you, and it's going to feel like a thought in your head. How you'll know that it's coming from the person with whom you're wanting to communicate, or the spirit in heaven, let's say, is when they answer you, it's going to be the first thing, fast as you can snap your fingers, that comes into your brain. If you think about it for more than a second, it's going to be your brain talking to you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And sometimes I think for me, I may not even connect with them. They're already talking to me. So you can bypass that connection because their spirits around you.
Well, spirits are always communicating with us. Most of us aren't receiving the communication because we're not tuned to the correct frequency. It's kind of like when you have satellite TV and a storm is going through your area, the satellite signal may be temporarily blocked by the cloud cover or the storm, but that programming is still being broadcast. You're just not receiving it.
Mm.
So you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, spirit's always communicating with us.
So on one of your episodes of Ask Julie Ryan or Ask Julie, somebody asked about or you talked about grief, right? And how grief is a low vibration.
Right.
And then, we need to be at a higher vibration in order to connect because someone asked about connecting with someone who they love that passed. And what you suggested to them is that, or what they said, the person that passed said that they were going to come in through their dream. Important.
Every night when we go to sleep, we go back to the factory preset high vibration that we come in with. And our brains are at rest, and spirit can communicate with us sometimes more easily when we're asleep. We're not busy. We're not trying to solve issues at work or trying to figure out what we're going to do for dinner or pick up the kids or whatever. And so it's a really easy way for spirit to communicate with us when we're in a low vibration, and anything that feels bad is a low vibration. So I will often suggest to people who are grieving, ask your loved one to come visit you in a dream. And inevitably they do. If they don't the first night, keep asking and they'll come. You'll see. And then once they come, it's going to feel like it's a very vivid dream. It's going to feel like it's in high def almost. The colors will be more vibrant. The senses will be heightened. You'll remember small little details, even if they don't make sense to you. You're going to remember it versus a regular dream is kind of murky. And we
Mm.
normally don't remember them after we've woken up. Oh,
So
and
do you interpret some things through symbols as well?
all the time. Spirit, it's been my experience, Rose, that spirit communicates in numerals. And that's the universal language is numerals. And so it's gonna come into our brains and then we decode it. We decode it based on how we learn initially. Let's say I'm a visual learner, so I'm gonna see things in my mind's eye. And imagination is a huge component of spirit communication. Spirit uses our imagination to help decipher. When World War II was happening, the Allies had departments of people that would decode the Nazi messages. And that's what helped them win the war because they knew what the Nazi plans were with those decoders. So it's similar for us. Our brains are like decoders. So I'll see things, I'll hear things, I'll smell things, I'll feel things, I'll just absolutely know things. I call that divine downloads. And I think all of those skills develop with practice, really. But I teach, let's use what's easiest for you, and then we'll go from there.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about maybe walk us through how you combine your medical intuition with your energetic healing in a session. So, how does that look like for someone who comes in and says, I have an issue happening, and you do this whole laser beam thing and connect with them? So, what is that? If you can walk us through something like that for us.
Yeah, I'm like a human MRI, and I can see inside people's bodies with their permission, of course. We touched on that a minute ago. So I raise my vibrational level. It takes a nanosecond. I watch a laser beam in my mind's eye come from my body wherever I am, hooks into them wherever they are. You could be in a galaxy far, far away and it wouldn't matter. And then I envision shooting energy from their feet up through the top of their head. And it's as if I'm looking at an X ray or a CT scan or an MRI. Three things happen. Something's identified. I can see broken bones, torn ligaments, viral infections, bacterial infections, cancer, or whatever. Something's identified, and then immediately thereafter, there's some type of energetic healing. Now, that can take the form of something getting added, something getting removed. I watch procedures all the time in my mind's eye that emulate what I saw in surgery for many years as an inventor of surgical devices. We were in there testing prototypes and doing clinical studies and
Yeah.
things like that. Sometimes I see healings that utilize methodologies and devices that haven't been invented yet. And it's you may hear me say, "Oh, cool, I haven't seen this before."
Mm,
And then it just goes into my repertoire, my different healings that happen, and inevitably somebody with a similar situation will need
mm,
that healing. So it's spirit working through me and with me to help that person heal themselves because nobody ever heals anybody else. No doctor, no medical provider, no shaman, no healer like me ever. We just help the person heal themselves. And the analogy I like to use for that, Rose, is imagine if you had a big cut on your leg and you went to the emergency room, they're gonna stitch it up for you. But the doctor doesn't make your skin heal, you make your own skin heal, and that's how this works.
wow, I love that. I strongly believe that we are our own healers. Yeah, just finding how to do that sometimes is the harder part. And I was wondering, I know we spoke right before we started, and I got your okay to scan me. Would it be appropriate for you to do something like that now, since we just mentioned it, so that listeners can get an idea of how that works?
Sure,
And then we could
sure.
go on to talk about the 12 phases of transition and how you work with people with transition, which is fascinating. So, okay, so I've had some health scans in the past couple months. This year was a lot on various organs of my body. I've had it on my uterus and I've had it on my kidney and pancreas. But a couple days ago, last week, because I have a cyst on my pancreas, they did a biopsy. They think it's benign from what they see, but I'm constantly having these little issues like this. And I did have breast cancer a while ago. So I'm always looking over my shoulder and I feel like, well, I don't know. I'm trying to get an answer like, why is this happening to me? Is there a lesson learned? There's something I'm not doing or need to do. I don't drink anymore. I eat very healthy. And it's like I'm living this journey. I feel that this is like a journey for me. And so just want to know what's happening and what I can do to change maybe or something.
Have you had scans that are showing it,
Yeah.
or did you have some symptoms that
Yeah, so some symptoms where it was, discomfort in the stomach area,
Yeah,
I had scans that, showed it and my pancreas, I had a fatty tissue first show up, about 7 years ago, and now it's doubled, so then I have, other fatty tissues in other areas too, so it seems to be lumpy. I may be lumpy or bumpy in the inside. It could be nothing, but, I was curious as to how to either prevent them or is there is there something that I'm missing energetically? I keep thinking that there's like, because I do a lot of energy and healing work too. So not sure if it's just something I'm going through in a shift or part of my journey. I don't know.
before I get somebody on my radar just listening to it, I get what I call divine downloads. I'm hearing it's your diet.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know what you're eating. You're eating stuff that's causing these symptoms, and you say you don't drink alcohol. Do you eat sugar?
I have sugar in my coffee. I don't have a lot of sugar. I'm trying to cut that back on that. But the sugar in my coffee seems to be my little treat.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big sugar, candy, dessert type person. I do eat red meat, which
Yeah,
has fat
that's
on it.
great. As
Yeah.
long as it's grass-fed.
Yeah, not always, every place you go out, it's not always grass fed.
No,
I've also thought it could be diet related as
it's
well.
diet.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it is
diet,
right.
and I'll
Yeah.
get you on my radar, and we'll see what's going on. You wanna stay away from the seed oils too,
Okay.
canola oil,
Yeah.
safflower oil, sunflower oil, that kinda
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm
Olive
Italian. I
oil,
use olive oil.
yeah, olive oil, butter, grass-fed, that
Mhm.
kinda stuff, those fats. And then you're eating something that's inflammatory, so what could that be? Corn or
Could
corn
be corn chips.
corn chips, because 'cause they're deep fried in seed oils, most of them.
Yeah, yeah. That seems
Yeah,
to be that more than sugar, I'm more of a salty,
yeah.
crunchy, and corn chips, I think, have replaced alcohol for me.
So get the ones that are fried in olive oil or
Yeah.
avocado oil,
Right.
that kinda thing. They've got potato chips that are just avocado oil and sea salt and
I know.
potatoes, and they're
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, really good. So, yeah, I'm getting at your diet. Let me go in and see what's going on anyways. So here comes
Okay.
my laser beam from Sweet Home, Alabama, where I am, heading to you. Where are you?
New Jersey.
Jersey. Heading up to you in Jersey. All right, got you. Got the hologram of you in my mind's eye. You're being turned around to the back. I can see the growth on your pancreas. It looks benign to me, Rose. It looks pink. If it's malignant, it will normally look brown or black. And it has kind of a sticky consistency to it, like hot tar used to repave a road. That's what it looks like. So here comes the healing. My analogies are hilarious at times. It's how spirit communicates a visual to me so I can in turn and give it to you so you can have a just a human understanding of this energy healing that's happening just from a human frame of reference. So those cheese slicers that are just a handle with a thin wire in them, that's what I'm watching get used, something like that. But it's a hot wire, so it's gonna cut and cauterize at the same time when it gets that growth off. It goes down into your pancreas a little bit, so I'm watching it kinda curve down in there. So got that going on. Putting stem cell energy on it just to heal it. Light amber colored gel has sparkles in it. Reminds me of Dippity Doo hair gel from the 60s and 70s. And there's a vortex spinning above it. That centrifugal force in the vortex will regenerate that tissue where that divot was taken out of your pancreas. In the meantime, let's go ahead and clean out your pancreas. So imagine there's a spiral of energy inside Rose, and it looks like the Milky Way galaxy spiral. And so it's spinning really fast. And as it comes around on the right side and underneath and then up on the left, it's throwing out this kind of sludgy looking stuff. Have you ever seen fudge candy get made like on the
Mhm.
boardwalk?
Yeah.
When they pour it out of the after they've had it cooking and then they'll pour it on the marble slab, to put in a container
Mhm.
to let it solidify. That's what it looks like. It looks like that hot fudge, not hot fudge that you'd use on a sundae, but more like fudge candy.
Fudge sludge.
Fudge sludge, there you go. So I'm watching that. Those corn chips are absorbing like sugar.
Yeah.
Your body is what's happening, and that's why your pancreas is being taxed because the sludge that's coming out is very granular, like fudge candy, that
Yeah.
sludge coming out where the fudge candy is very granular. So that's what's going on, I believe, is those corn chips or
Mm.
anything refined is gonna be absorbed by the body like sugar. So if you're gonna eat them, be sure you eat them with some kind of fat, like use guacamole or eat a couple handfuls of nuts first just to slow down the sugar absorption.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I think I need to switch the diet because I've also eliminated wheat for the past 4 months or so, and I've been feeling better. So I think I'm on the right track. But
Yeah.
thank you for validating that. That feels good.
I've seen the masa chips. I haven't tried them, but I've seen them advertised and they're supposed to be really healthy. I think they're fried in beef tallow.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So you may
Well,
want to
there's so
try
many
that.
things now,
Yeah.
varieties of, and my son's going to school to be a food scientist, and I always tell him you
Oh,
could change the world. So maybe I'm an example for that, trying new things. But thank you for that.
you're
That makes me
welcome.
feel good. I kind of like I said, I think I've almost answered that, but having you go through that process for me validates it. And yes, thank you. It's
What else are you eating that's crunchy? Are you eating crackers? Are you no, just the corn chips? With
yeah,
what,
pretty much.
salsa?
Yeah, not really. I just kind of eat the corn.
Just the
corn.
corn chips. So they're absorbing like sugar because 'cause they're
Yeah,
refined.
yeah,
Yeah, and then they're fried in some kind of seed oil, which is causing inflammation.
yeah.
And so you're getting your pancreas is getting
Well,
the brunt of it.
the other thing I was thinking about is dairy. Not sure if that showed up on your radar. Do you?
Dairy, as long as it's full fat, is
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah,
But it's the corn chips.
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Corn chips. Oh well, got to get rid of that vice now, or just change it. But
Or
thank you.
just change them to
Yeah,
something that's fried in a healthy oil.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's great. Wow.
and organic, because corn has a lot of pesticides in it, lot of
GMO.
Roundup,
Yeah.
well,
GM.
not only that, but it's got, you know,
Yeah.
kinds of bad stuff on it unless it's organic.
Yeah. That's true. Well, I will let you know.
Yes, please
Yeah.
do. You're fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
fine. It's not malignant.
Cool. Thank
If
you.
it was malignant, it would look dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have done some self-healing with myself to try to reduce it as well. So, just got to keep doing the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and once you stop irritating it and inflaming it, the body has a tremendous capacity to heal. It can heal everything and
Yeah.
anything. So once we get out of the way, then the body can not have to battle all the bad stuff that we're eating and spend its energy on healing whatever needs to be healed.
Yeah. Do you ever, when you're ever scanning somebody, do you ever associate emotions with certain parts of the body? Because I know from a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, the pancreas and the stomach, they're more like the worrying and that emotion. And, I guess having young children, they're 21 and, navigating life that, and as a mom, you're always worrying. So having the stomach issues are probably part of that journey as well.
Yeah, emotion is an absolute component in any kind of medical symptom. And there's always an emotional component that causes an energy leak that precedes any kind of medical symptom. So, the way that I perceive the body set up is I went through 12 years of Catholic schools, Rose. I was taught the spirit or the soul is someplace in the chest area and the body's around it. That's not what I perceive. They had it wrong. The spirit is the main part of us, the body's inside the spirit. And it's all contained in what I call the energy field membrane. And that's the container that holds the energy that makes up our body and our spirit. It reminds me of really thin, stretchy saran wrap. Think of it as a plastic bag that expands and contracts depending on what we've got going on at any given moment. When there's a tear or a hole in that energy field membrane, the body's leaking power. It's always in place 100% of the time before any kind of disease or illness takes root. So, as part of a healing, what I'll do is go into that tear or hole and I'll be shown a scene, either from this life or a past life. If it's this lifetime, I may say, okay, Rose, 1992, where were you? What was going on? Was there anything emotional happening? Did you move? Did somebody die? What happened? And I would say 99% of the time, my clients know right off the bat. If they can't think of anything, I can go in and I can see a scene of what's going on. And I'll say, okay, you're in a red Ford Fairlane and you were in an accident and you were T-boned. They'll say, oh my God, I forgot about that. Yes, that happened. If it's a past life, we'll get where it was, when it was, a little bit about what happened, and then we'll correlate it with what's going on in their current life because they will have brought in an energy block from a past life and they're still exploring it in this lifetime. Once we illuminate it, it eradicates that energy block. The initial, I'm going for where did that energy block begin? Not the most dramatic thing that's ever happened to you, The energy filled membrane heals, the body goes back to working on full power, helps the body regain and maintain health. It's the most important part of a healing because we can fix body parts all day long, but if you're leaking power, what's the point?
This is amazing. So you teach people how to do this?
I
My
Yes.
gosh.
And
This is
people can do this usually within an hour or 2 of
this
the
is
class. Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna be in your class one day. Alright, so I did read your book, Angelic Ancestors, right? Is that how you say it?
Attendance.
Attendant, sorry, I'm sorry. And, you talk about a lot about your mom and how during the time she transitions and how you saw all her attendants arrive. Please talk about this and also how you've called it the 12 phases of transition. It's fascinating, and
Right.
I want you to share it with the listeners, please.
Well, as you mentioned, the first time I saw this was when my mom was dying in 2002, and I'd been studying woo-woo for about 10 years at that point, but I'd never been around anybody dying before. That was the first time. And so I felt like the lady of justice scales, on one side of the equation, my heart was breaking because my mom was dying. On the other side, I was seeing all this glorious stuff in the spirit world. Wow, this is gonna be interesting. So, everybody goes through what I call the 12 phases of transition, regardless of if they die instantly, like in the case of a homicide or suicide, or if they die over a prolonged period of time, days, weeks, months, even years. Because time doesn't exist in the spirit world, time's a human creation. So, what happens to all of us is our spirit exits through the top of our head and holds on to the body in a speech bubble configuration, like in a cartoon, the character's thoughts or words that they're saying. And then they're surrounded by angels and the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets. Interestingly enough, university based research now shows that 90% of people at the end of their lives see the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets as they're transitioning. 90%,
Yeah,
Rose.
I
So
know.
don't you love it when science catches up with woo woo? Because woo woo's
Yes.
been around a whole lot longer. The spirit is hanging on to the top of the head. The first spirit to show up is the maternal spirit closest to the person who's dying. When I'm dying, my mother will be there. If my mother had still been alive, it would be my maternal grandmother. If she was still alive, it would be her mother, always on the maternal line. Now that surprised me because I thought God probably has a death dispatch department where he dispatches angels or something. But it really surprised me that the spirit that really runs the show from the spirit world calls in the angels and the other spirits is the maternal one. And we think we're done with our kids when they're grown and gone, and we're not. We're still working with them from beyond the
Yes.
grave.
Yes.
So the second spirit to come in is the paternal spirit, closest to the person who's dying. My dad's deceased, it would be my father. If he was still alive, it would be my maternal grandfather. Goes on the maternal line still. And then the maternal spirit calls in the angels. And these are big old angels as I perceive them, Rose. They have big wings, white gown, rope belt, barefoot. Is that what angels really look like? To a Catholic schoolgirl, that's what they look like, because that's what I was taught they look like, similar to the statuary and the artwork. To somebody growing up in an indigenous culture in the middle of the Amazon, it may be a blob of purple fog or something. Spirit's always going to appear to us in a way that we can recognize who they are. Or at least spirit will show up if I'm working with a family and I'll say, okay, there's an older woman. She's got on a button up the front sweater. It's got pearl buttons. She's got white hair. Her hair's in a bun in the back of her head. And they'll say, oh, that's Grandma Annie. And I'll say, okay. Because they'll show up in a way that I can describe to, my client who they are. So that's kind of fun. The person is getting closer to death. That circle opens up into a horseshoe and then eventually a straight line, let's say for conversation's sake, across the foot of a bed. Let's say a dying person's in a bed when they're dying. Again, this all transpires instantly, for people who die instantly or it can take long periods of time. Spirits of deceased loved ones show up in multitudes, like thousands and thousands of them, so many of them that they look like dots on the horizon. Pet spirits show up. With my mother, I was like, "Oh my god, these dogs we had when we were kids, their spirits were in the room." I was seeing people who'd been dead for 25 years that I haven't thought of since they died, and their spirits were in the room. And then the people from all of our lifetimes in different period dress, Renaissance, cavemen, Twiggies, go-go boots, and mini skirts all over. And it's fascinating to see that. Couple of nuances that take place during the 12 phases of transition. About phase 5, there are 2 additional angels that show up on either side of the spirit bubble. And about a phase between phase 9 and 10, Rose, their wings start to move. And they reminded me the first time I saw it with my mother, they reminded me of a giant owl. You watch it, their wings, they're silent, they're powerful. You can almost feel the drag that they're creating. Well, the angels' wings on either side of my mother's spirit bubble, as they were moving, they were creating a vortex above her head. And I thought, well, that's going to be interesting because I've heard near death experiencers talk about going through a tunnel or a vortex. And I thought, I'll bet this is going to help her spirit evacuate from her body. And that is exactly what happened. The spirit goes up through the vortex. The vortex has an upward pull. It reminded me of a car wash when you go to the end and they turn on the dryer and it's sucking all the water off your car. That's what it reminded me of. So then the angels that are on either side of the spirit bubble escort that spirit to heaven. Heaven looks like a big white, yellowish, brilliant plasma wall to me. And they go through the plasma wall and it immediately shuts, immediately closes. I've never seen St. Peter at the heavy pearly gates in heaven with a clipboard going, "Okay, yeah, you can come in. No, you have to go burn for eternity," because everybody goes to heaven. All
I grew
dogs go to heaven, all people
Yeah.
go to heaven. So, couple of other interesting points. When I was writing angelic attendants, I was led to look up owl wings vortex. Come to find out, there's this aeronautical engineering phenomenon that occurs on everything that flies, whether it be a jet, a plane, a bird, a bug, a kite. It's how the air goes over and underneath the wing, and it creates a vortex underneath the wing, and it causes lift. If you do an internet search on wingtip vortex, you will see thousands of aeronautical engineering drawings, pictures, articles. Every pilot knows all about the wingtip vortex. And I thought, whoa, this is a phenomenon I was watching in the spirit world, the movement of these angel wings that was creating this vortex that I could see, feel, hear above my mother's head. And I thought, holy Moses, that's pretty amazing. So that was point number 1. Point number 2 is, this, at the end of every Catholic funeral, they say the prayer in paradisum. It's either said or sung. It's part of the ritual. When you translate in paradisum from Latin to English, it means into paradise. Talks about how the angels and your loved ones will greet you and lead you into paradise. And at my mom's funeral, I thought, I've heard that prayer so many times in my life, but I have a totally new understanding of it now because that's what I saw happen with the 12 phases of transition was I saw the angels and the loved ones greet my mother and lead her into paradise. And now I've seen it thousands and thousands of times since, and it's amazing.
Wow.
When I was writing Angelic Attendants, I thought, where did that prayer originate? And I learned that it began as a 5th century Gregorian chant. And I thought, well, maybe it took till the 5th century till somebody was learned enough that they could read and write. And certainly some of the most well educated people back then were men, and they were living in monasteries and synagogues. They were the scribes. So I picture some little monk sitting there writing out this prayer And it's something that people had seen from the beginning of time. And as we've become more well educated and proof based, we lost sight of that.
Yeah. That's an incredible story. I encourage everyone to pick up your book and read it. You say you've seen it thousands of times. Now, in your book, you talk about how you help people who have people who have passed. They come to you and they ask you, like, who was there, or how was their passing, and this is how you're able to also help others. So not just from your mother, but the thousands of other people that come to you and say, "Can you see?" So you're able to go back and see their passing.
Yeah, because time doesn't exist in the spirit world, so we can go forward, we can go backwards, it doesn't
Right.
matter. It's like an instant replay when somebody makes a touchdown in a football game, and they'll do the instant replay so you can see it again. Anybody that wants a copy of Angelic Attendance, just go to julieryangift.com. We'll send you a free copy, digital
Yeah.
and audiobook, and we've got it in Spanish too. There and inside are diagrams of what the different phases look like. Furthermore, if you have somebody who's at the end of their life and you want to know about this, you can go to my website, askjulieryan.com, and go to the 12 phases of transition page. There's a chart that you can download for free, and it has all the different illustrations of the 12 phases. Download it, save it on your phone, and then just when your loved one is at the end of their lives, just say, "Hey, what phase is my grandmother in?" And you'll hear a number in your head and then refer to the chart.
Oh,
And then
wow.
you can it can really help. It helps so many families. So I think this stuff should be taught in the schools, which is why I give away thousands of copies of it every year because it just helps so many people get through it with a loved one. And let's face it, we're all going to be there. So we're all thinking about our own mortality when we're watching a loved one pass.
Oh, I think about it every night. It's crazy. But after reading your book, I find so much more comfort in
Yeah.
knowing that, they're all gonna show up. And my dog as well, who passed. I always tell him, one of these days, I'll see you. Maybe not now, but, yeah, I'm gonna put everything in the show notes, and thank you for that offer. And I do also have that. I downloaded that chart myself, but
Yeah.
now I know how to utilize it. Uh,
Well, and if you're getting that your loved one is going through like phase 5, 6, 7, 8 in rapid succession, then you know to bring the family in because they're moving pretty quickly. Because people
yeah.
take time off work. Sometimes they have to travel a long way to be with their loved ones at the end of their lives. And people have found it to be really helpful. And I think it helps us live our lives more joyfully too, because if the worst thing that can happen is you're escorted to heaven by angels and you're reunited with all of your deceased loved ones and pets, if that's the worst thing that can happen, okay, bring it on. We all decide where we go, when we go, who's with us or not when we go. And that's a really important point to remember too, because so many people feel guilty if they're not with their loved one when they pass.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not there, they didn't want you there. Not because they didn't love you, but because for whatever reason they didn't want you to, be extra worried. But there are a million reasons. And every healthcare provider that's worked in critical care or hospice will tell you that. Every funeral director will tell you that. They have tons of stories from families who say, "Yeah, we were all with grandma and then we left to go get dinner and she checked out while we were gone." Well, she didn't want you there. She thought it might be too hard for you or whatever.
How do you answer skeptics who find energetic healing or mediumship hard to accept? I'm sure you've run across a couple of those in your many years of doing your work.
I have much fewer than I anticipated, frankly. People say, "Well, you got to convince me." And I'll say, "Well, really, I don't. If you want to talk about it, fine. If you want to talk about football or the weather or where you went on your trip, I'm happy to talk to you about whatever you want." And then they'll say, "No, no, no, no. I want to talk to you. I want to know what you have to say." I say, "All right." And then they'll say, "Well, I just think if you're talking to spirits, it's got to be evil. It's got to be coming from the devil." And I'll say, "Well, all spirits are pure love, first of all, and the personality of the person stays with the body when somebody dies. So if your mother was awful and she's the last person you want bedside when you're dying, remember that was the role she was playing in that lifetime in which you knew her. Her spirit is pure love. So when somebody says, "Well, I just think that it's wrong, it's evil if you're talking to spirit," and I'll say, "Well, okay, do you pray?" And they'll say, "Yeah, of course I pray." And I'll say, "Well, do you get your prayers answered?" They'll say, "Yeah, all the time." I'll say, "All right, so who to whom are you praying?" They'll say, "Jesus," or whomever. I say, "Great. So when you're talking to Jesus in your prayers, is Jesus actually sitting next to you on the couch and you can feel him and touch him? He's in his body and you're talking to him." And they said, "Well, no, of course not." And I said, "You're talking to Jesus' spirit." And you can just see the light bulbs going off in their heads. And I'll say, "That's exactly what we're all doing. You're communicating with Jesus' spirit. Spirit's communicating with you all the time. It's whether or not you choose to communicate back. It's whether or not you choose to listen." So that just knocks it out.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
the veil is so thin.
the
Wow.
stories. Yeah,
Yeah, you share a lot of the stories too in your book,
I do.
and also you have blog posts on your website too. We also so we'll shift gears just a little bit, and then we're going to wrap it up. You've also said that we all have spirit guides,
Yeah.
and some people may know that they have guides, and then they may know that there's one or two that's active. But how can we connect with the other five or six or seven? Do we just say, "Hey, can you show up?" You know, or or raise our vibration and say, uh, I don't know, come out from behind the curtain.
Yeah, they all look like when spirit guides first show up to me, Rose, they look like a version of Father Time. Old man, long white hair, white beard, white gown.
Yeah.
Think of Dumbledore in the Harry Potter
Yes.
movies or Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings movies. And then some are tall and thin, some are more portly and stout and all of that. And then once we focus on each individual one, then they morph into what they look like in a lifetime that pertains the most to what they're advising us about in this lifetime.
Okay.
They follow us. They, as I perceive them, they're kind of in a semicircle and they're around us all the time. Seven is the number in the Bible for spiritual perfection. Three is divine perfection. Seven is spiritual perfection, which I think is interesting. So we'll just say, "Hey, spirit guides, what are your names?"
Yeah.
You'll hear them in your head. Then we'll say, "Okay, Stanley, you know, focus on Stanley." Stanley's morphing into what he looked like in the lifetime that he lived that pertains to what we're going through at any given moment. And Stanley was a professor at Oxford in English, and he is advising you on quantum physics. Or another one, it was funny because I have a client who's a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, publicly traded. And we were talking about his spirit guides one time, and he had some big time spirit guides like Benjamin Franklin and Abraham Lincoln and Sam Walton and Mary Kay Ash, the gal that founded Mary Kay
Yeah.
Cosmetics.
Huh.
And he said to me, "Who?" And I said, the pink Cadillacs. You remember the pink Cadillac ladies?" He goes, "Vaguely." And he said, "Why would she be one of my spirit guides?" I said, "Are you kidding?" She amassed one of the largest independent sales forces ever with a bunch of housewives and moms who were stay at home. And she got them to go out and sell beauty products to their friends and family and made billions off of it.
Yeah.
I
An
don't,
empire.
huge empire. I said, "Talk about a saleswoman."
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I'm gonna have to look her up." And so, yeah, it's really interesting who ends up, and they're not always famous. They can be like my main spirit guide is a dead pope, Pope Clement VI. And he showed up one time when I was with my mentor. She was doing a healing on me. And when I'm laying on a massage table, my deceased loved one's spirits line both
Mm.
sides of the table and they're participating in the healing. Well, one day this dead pope shows up with the pope hat and the staff and all that jazz. And I said, "Shepherd's rod." And he's holding on to it. And I said, "Well, who are you?" And he said, "I'm Clement." And I said, "I'm so sorry. I never heard of a Pope Clement." And he started laughing and he said, "Well, I was number 6." And I said, "Okay, how may I help you?" My mentor, Susan, could see him too. And he said, "Well, you're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies." And I said, "I'm not doing that. I'm a businesswoman. People will think I'm nuts." And he said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." He said, "It's been so bastardized throughout the ages, and people are so afraid, and you know what happens. And so you just need to go teach the world about this." And I said, "Again, thank you so much, but I'm not interested." And he said, "No, look, everything that you've done in your life has prepared you for this. So just get on with it." I said, "Thanks so much for stopping by. No, thanks. I'm not interested." So a few minutes later, I left and I'm in the car, Rose, and I just looked up on my phone, Pope Clement the Sixth. Well, come to find out, this guy was in office during the Black Plague, and he's best known for his prayers for the dying and his prayers for the dead. And I thought, all right, you can't make that up. And then it was a few years until I really got my next big nudge. And that was when I was at church sitting in between my husband and my son. And from the pulpit, the priest on Sunday morning said, "Wouldn't it be nice if somebody could really tell us if the angels and our loved ones greet us and escort us into paradise?" And I'm getting elbowed from my husband and my son. And I thought, "God, really? From the pulpit on Sunday morning, you're giving me grief about this? Really?" And that's when I took the leap because I thought, "This is gonna hurt my businesses." And may I tell one other quick story about that?
Absolutely. I love your stories.
I get ready, we launch AskJulieRyan.com. I'm lecturing to a conference of C-suite executives in Austin, Texas. And I give my talk, mostly men in the audience. I give my talk. Afterwards, this guy comes up to me. He's got his iPad open to AskJulieRyan.com with my picture on it. I'm thinking, here we go. I'm just going to get pummeled. And he said, "Is this you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's my picture." And he said, "I'm really interested in hearing more about this. Can we sit together at lunch?" I said, "Sure." And I thought, "Oh, this will be a nightmare," talking to this guy at lunch about it. Anyways, I go sit down. There's a table of 8. It's 7 men and me. They didn't want to talk about the conference. They didn't want to talk about what my talk was about. They only wanted to know about woo woo. And I thought,
I
"All
love
right. All right, God. All right." And that's when I went full steam ahead
I
with it.
love that. That was your big validation that
That was my big validation.
yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great
because
story.
these guys were not the normal guys that I would imagine would be wanting to spend the whole lunch hour talking about woo-woo.
Well, I'm glad that more men are interested in woo woo and that science is catching up and that
Yeah.
you are doing what you're doing because you're doing amazing work. And I'm so grateful that you and I connected. And last question, what's on the horizon for Julie Ryan? What else you got going on, Julie?
Phone app coming,
Oh,
so that's exciting, and we're gonna do this thing called Spirit Chat off of the phone app with I just picked out the music a couple of weeks ago for Spirit Chat, and you'll be able to do a 1-minute video on your phone and submit it for Spirit Chat, and then I'll answer the question on the app, and so that'll be fun. It'll have a lot of content that you can't get anywhere else on the phone app. We hope to have that out in the next month or so,
I love
and, book number 8 is coming out. It's called Angel Messages for Your Life's Journey, Volume 2. And it's all kinds of spiritual occurrences, whether they involve angels or signs from loved ones or other miraculous serendipitous things. And they're all stories from my graduates. And they put those in. And then the proceeds from the book go towards funding a scholarship for angelic attendant training. So somebody will announce the scholarship in a couple of weeks on my show, and it'll be all expenses paid to Atlanta, including tuition and your airfare and your hotel and all your
Oh,
meals
that's
and all of
beautiful.
that.
I love that you're giving back like that. That's fabulous. And I'm gonna have everything in the show notes. And your Ask Julie show is not only it's audio, but it's also a YouTube, so they can go there live and check that out. All the information on your website that is just full of information. And I
Yeah.
cannot thank you enough for being here. I mean, I was so excited to interview you, and I'm so glad that we were able to do this. And thank you for your energy and everything that you do.
My honor. Thank you so much for having
And thank you for scanning me too.
that. Yeah, you're good.
It
You're
was
good.
amazing.